Hello and welcome back to Angie B Crafts. So today I'm just going to have a little play in my Pink Pig A5 art journal. I've picked out some distress inks. I've not used them for ages. I've got my brushes with me as well. So I was umming and ahhing. I've got a lovely new set of the eggs to use as well, and some foam, cut and dry foam. But I thought I'll stick with my brushes. I do like my brushes. So I'm going to start off, I'm just going to use the three colours that I've gone for are mustard seed yellow, picked raspberry pink and spiced marmalade orange. I just thought they were nice and bright. So that's what we're going with. So I'm going to start with the yellow. And to start off with, I'm just getting some colour down. Just to get some onto the page. And this is going to look really untidy initially, and it's something that I quite often get asked is, how do you get a good colour blend? The best advice that I can give about that is just keep going. If you just put down, if I do this and just put down a little bit of colour like that, it doesn't look right. I'm going to leave it like that. I'm not going to touch it again just yet, but it doesn't look right. Add in a little bit of pink. So you can see it's quite pale, and then certain bits of it come up a little bit deeper, and it just all looks a bit bitty and messy and not brilliant, but that's fine. I'm not worried about it. Trust the process, as they say. So again, you can see there's a bit of orange coming on. So at the minute we've just got this really pale, bit naff looking kind of colour going on. Not really sure what's happening, and it doesn't look terribly inspiring. I don't like it. If you want a pale background, fair enough. Personally, I think that does look a little bit naff. So now I'm going to go in again, the same colours, and it's just then about going in over the top with another layer. So you can see already there's a huge difference between the colours just by adding it in, and it is about building it up. Take your time, don't rush it. If you're going to rush the process, you're not going to get as good a blend, because it's about getting the colours to just start working together. So as I'm doing this, I'm very gradually going over the other colours that I've put down as well. And you can do this. I'm actually just going to flip this book closed, and I can get in a little bit closer to that edge. It's going to be on a little bit of a wonky donkey as we're doing this, but that's fine. We're just adding on extra colour. So going back pretty frequently to get some more, and moving on to the pink again. And we're just starting to build up the colours. You can see immediately where the colour already was, it's much darker, and on the white bits it's coming up much paler. And then starting to overlap with some of the other colours, and this is where you start to get the blending, the two colours coming together and making a lovely new colour. So you started off with quite a pale and insipid looking page, and now it's becoming much more vibrant. So it's just about taking your time, build it up, adding it on bit by bit and blending the colours in together, so it doesn't look like you've just plonked them down. That's not what you're after. If you do just want to plonk them down, and that is what you're after, all well and good, but for this background that's not what I'm wanting. So I am working in threes, and that is just because from the very beginning of my crafty journey, it was instilled in my mind the rule of threes, so I just stick to it, and it does work. You will sometimes see that I'll work in fives or sevens, but I always keep it as an odd number, and that's to do with confusing the brain when it's interpreting the information that it gets from vision. Again, you can see we're now getting a nice vibrant orange compared to this, which is the same colour. This has just got an extra layer. So we're just adding in more and starting to get a really nice build-up of the colours. So I start off with a rule of 3, and I've done 3 of the yellow, 3 of the pink, and then we're starting to think, well, where can we put the different colours. You don't really want, well, I don't want a continuous colour there, so I need something to infill it. So I'll probably bring that pink out a little bit. So I'll come down to this orangey bit here. But you'll also see that we're starting to get a different orange where the yellow and the pink is overlapping. We're getting a different tone of orange. So it's not about just sticking to your 3 colours. The idea of doing this is that you get several colours, because the different inks all mix together. And I'm actually going to add a little bit more orange here and take it across into the pink. So it's just about keeping going until you're happy. I'm going to put some more orange up here, so you'll see I'm still sticking to odd numbers. Let's get that brain confused. On your background it's not as essential to stick to the odd numbers, and the reason for that is you're going to be putting other things on top. So potentially you're actually going to be hiding some of these things that you're putting on now. But it's just, I think for me, it's just probably what you call best practice. It's what I'm used to doing. Okay, now I want orange as my edging colour, so I'm going to go around the whole of it with the orange, just to give it a little bit of edging and clarity as to where the edge of the page is. And I'm aware that I still need to come in and finish off those other colours, but you can see we're starting, got a much more vibrant colour there. I want some of this pink. Yeah, we'll do the pink, just coming in here a little bit. And if you do get lines you don't want, you can just go over them with other colours, it's not a problem. So I want a little bit more yellow up here, and I want to reduce this. This is feeling too big to me, so I'm just going to bring the yellow in, and it's going to give us a different tone of orange. And there's quite a lot of white around the edge of this, so I'm just starting to really cross over, and I'm not worried that I'm going over the whole page. I've not got a lot of ink on here, but it's just pulling it all together. Okay, I'm happy with that. Remember, this is your background. In fact, I'm going to leave the lids off because I'm then going to pull out some stencils. So this is one of my stencil pouches. I've tried all sorts of ways of storing stencils, and to be honest, they all frustrate me. I've not yet found one that I really like. But this is where I'm working at the minute. I'm just using them in different little Polly Pockets and then picking out the one I want. Now I quite like this one. Oops, sorry, it caught the camera there. I cannot for the life of me tell you what brand it is. I feel like I should know, but I don't. So I'm going to imagine that the stencil is this big initially. So I'm not going to use that top bit. I'm going to pop it on roughly central. I'm taking this as my outer edge, even though the colour extends beyond it. I'm using this inside edge of the binding as my outer edge. So that's going to be roughly central. Doesn't have to be perfect, just an approximation. I'm going to go in with the pink. Now if you want to, you can choose to pin this down. It would be the logical thing to do, but I'm just too eager to do it. It's very rare that I will pin down a stencil with I say pin down, I do mean tape down, obviously, with low tack tape. I do have some low tack tape, and it is actually in a drawer very near to me as well. Unfortunately, on top of that drawer is a whole load of other stuff, so I can't actually get at the tape anyway. So you can start to see now we're getting some real vibrancy. So this is the same colours that we've already used. I'm just using the pink, so this is the picked raspberry, but it's going on top of all the other colours underneath. And because it's going through the stencil, it's a more concentrated version, because the stencil is effectively rubbing the bristles as you go over it and picking the colour off. So you're getting a more concentrated colour. Keep going. We're nearly there. I've just got this one bottom one to do, and then we've got a pretty little background going on. Now you can use your stencils in loads and loads of different ways. Right, let's have a quick peek. Yeah, I like that. That looks pretty cool. I'm liking that a lot. What I'm going to do is just flip this open, take this, I'm not adding any more ink on, and I'm just going to use whatever ink is on there. I'm cleaning it off with the brush, and we'll see what we end up with. So this now is going to have picked up lots of different colours because it's gone through the stencil. Although this stencil was actually clean as well. Did you notice that? Started off with a clean stencil, a rarity indeed. I have had this one for a while. I remember it coming, see that looks quite nice as well. I remember it coming as part of a kit, but I honestly can't remember who the kit was by. Right, I'm going to move this out of the way and very quickly give this a bit of a clean, just with some water and a wipe, because I want to use a different colour. Now if I was doing this just my own crafting, I would have sprayed that and put it onto another page, etc, etc. I would have done lots of mop-ups with it rather than wasting that ink. But doing it on camera tends to mean do it faster. So what I'm going to do now is use these little flowers, and I'm going to go in with orange on them because I think they look pretty in orange. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to use 3 of them. So I'm going to purposely, I'm not going to take them down, but I am putting my finger over this one so that I can't accidentally go over it. So you can use your tape, you can use your finger, you can trust yourself to do it. Have a quick peep. Yes, we've got some nice flowers there. I'm then going to spin it round, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. So we're going to go just for the 3, get some ink and pop it on. There we go. I think that's beginning to look quite nice, isn't it? Rather liking it. Just do the same thing here with clearing off. So this is just the beginning of another page. I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried that I'm going over there a little bit. It's just to clean off what ink is there. Moved a little bit, but it doesn't matter. It's a nice background. It'll form something. Okay. So what do we want to do with this? Well, this is really pretty and I like it, but I do want to change it a little bit. It's a bit too perfect on here. Remember, we just ignore this page. This is the one we're working on. So I'm just going to come in. Distress ink, if you haven't used Distress ink, it's a product by Ranger. It's designed by Tim Holtz, and it's designed to enable you to get that distress look. It initially came out in the browns and then he's introduced lots and lots. I think he's on 62 different colours at the minute. I could be wrong, I wouldn't swear to it. But it will go on to most products, and then if you add water it will react. So you can see there's some little droplets forming on here now. It doesn't look like much. I'm purposely leaving it just a minute or two just to let it react with the ink. And then I've got a roll of kitchen towel, and I'm just going to roll that over the page. And you can see that the ink has now been lifted, so it's starting to look a little bit more like an old piece of paper, and that's the look I'm after. I've not quite got enough there, so I'm just gonna, if you squeeze, this is the Tim Holtz bottle, it's the Distressed Sprayer Vaporizer, Vaporisateur, for creating fine sprays. But so it's got a sprayer and then in French, so you can do it for fine sprays, which is what I did, but if you squeeze it slowly, a big blob comes out, and then you shake it off the end. There we go. So you can get larger blobs by squeezing it more slowly. The nearer you are, the more you're going to get a blob. The further away you are, you're going to get more of a spray. So depending what look you want, you can start to see here there's some changes. I'm not rushing in with my kitchen towel. I'm letting it do its thing first. It's almost like a faux bleaching effect. So I'm just going to go in again, over the top. That's better. You can see some proper blobs there. The thing with using kitchen roll, if you end up liking the colours, you can use this on your projects as well, which is always nice. So we have a background. I'm going to give this a quick blast because this is now quite wet because of the water I've put on it. If I then try and stamp on top of it, it's not going to take the ink as well. So I'm going to dry it off and then I will come back to you. So here I have one of the Tracy Evans stamps from All and Create. It's from this set. I can't off the top of my head remember the name of the set, but it's one that I've not used it before. I've primed it using my Memento ink, but I haven't used it to do any projects yet. So I'm going to initially stamp it using Dusty Concord Distress ink because I want it to be a little bit shadowy, and I also want the option, I'm going to print it, I don't want it, I want it kind of up and off to one side. I want to use the ink that I'm putting down now to help with the colouring. I'm going to do another stamp over the top of it using Memento ink, but that's going to act as the main stamp and this is going to act like a shadow. And the benefit of putting this on, you can put it on before or after. I prefer to put it on before because then it's going to be underneath and not take any colour off the top layer. So we've got this stamp in the distressing. I'm going to give it a bit of a clean down, but it's going to be the shadow. I'm going to use then what's left with a paintbrush and water, or a water brush, one of the two, and then go over the top with that just to add some colour. Apologies, I'm getting a lot of camera movement with doing the inking up. Right, so this is my Versafine Clair. Now to do this bit I need to stand up so that I can carefully or slightly carefully align it. I'm not worried about it being 100% perfect, which is good because it's quite hard to do. If you do want it 100% perfect, I recommend using a stamping platform, which I do own but I rarely use. I'm always quite pleased with the results when I do. Don't know what stops me doing it. I just prefer good old-fashioned stamping blocks, and it is a personal preference. So there you'll see it looks a little bit hazy because we've got the purple underneath. The purple is the shadow. I'm going to give this a blast just to dry off all the ink, and then I'm going to bring in my water brush and we'll see what happens. So this is what we've been left with, and with the exception of the Memento ink, all the ink on here is reactive to water. So when I now come in with my water brush, we're going to get a little bit of lift off the pink, but we're also going to get some of that purple mixing in, so it's going to add some colour and tone onto our bird, which is what I'm after with the ink underneath. So I'm being quite loose in applying this. I'm not being particular and fussy and worrying about where it goes. This is just getting the water on so that we're getting some of that colour coming through. So we've now got this natural shadowing effect. There's bits you don't like, you can just add a little bit more water and the purple will disappear. It's almost like having a built-in eraser. What you can also do, and what I think I may do with this, with the writing of bird, is introduce some watercolour. I think I'll probably get my watercolour pencils out for that. But I quite like the effect of that. It's just a little bit off. So up here it says cream, I believe, and it just almost looks like a little bit 3D, which is what I was after. So I am going to get my watercolour pencils. So these are my Inktense pencils, and I'm going to use them to add a little bit more highlight. So if you've seen my videos before, you will know that I love my Inktense pencils. They're a fabulous chance to get some really cool colouring going on. It's just having colour in a stick, it's brilliant. I love them. If you want to be more accurate in your placement, you can be. It's entirely down to your personal choice. I'm not an accurate crafter. I read a thing today that really made me smile about art. Art is not an object. Art is a process. And I thought, that's so true. It really is a process. The stuff that I create through the process. And that's what I enjoy. That's the bit that I love of this. It's the actual creative process. It's spending time deciding what you want to do where. Now what I'm going to do now is just start adding into odd little bits some dark colour. And even though this is a bird, I'm not thinking these are feathers and it has to look like the feathers. I'm just colouring in between the lines and seeing what I end up with. So the other way that you can use these pencils even, is to actually put the colour direct down onto the paper. You don't have to then add water, but I prefer to, and then just add the water in so you get a different look. Personally, I do most of the time prefer to just use them as if they're a really high pigment watercolour. So this is just picking little bits out. It's a bit random, there's not really anything about, it's just whichever ones I fancy. I'm not thinking, oh, that has to be further away, or it's whichever spaces I fancy putting in this purple. I'm just doing it. I really want it on the beak. That's the one bit I do know. Quite liking that. Now another thing that you can do with this, and I think this is really cool, if you put down water onto your brush, it does work better with a fan brush, but it'll work with this, and then you just splatter it. Look at that splattering, it's brilliant. You love it. It almost looks like coffee grounds, doesn't it? So you'll notice there's quite a few of mine that have got sort of the colour right the way up, and that's because I've used them in splattering like that. So we're now starting to get a little bit more of an image of what we're going to do. Right, so the other things that you get in this stamp set, you get a second large stamp, which I'm not going to use on this project, but you also get some smaller stamps. So we have another little bird, which I'm going to use, and 2 little scribble stars, which I'll also use. And I'm going to swap over to my other stamping block. Right, here's my other stamping block, which is an All & Create stamping block. Love this one, the border one. It's the one I use most for any stamping. This is the stamping block I use the most. So I'm going to do some stamping in these background colours, just randomly, but I'm also going to do some in darker colours. So let's start with the orange. So remember, this is Spiced Marmalade, Distressing. I'm going to pop him up here, sitting on the top of that S. Oh, I do like that. That looks really cool. I'm going to move the position just so that it's at the top and over to that side a little bit, because then I can get, in fact I want it a bit closer to that edge, because then I can start getting it right up to the edge. I'm going to bring in yellow. I'll do a yellow one. This is the mustard seed. I've not removed what was left, so there'll probably be some contamination. Again, if you're particular about your inks, don't contaminate them the way I just have done, but it just isn't something that overly worries me. Probably my oxides I do worry more about, because they've got the pigment, the chalkiness to them. So that's quite a pale one. You can just about make it out. I don't think it shows out very well on camera, but you can just about make it out. I'm going to do one in the pink. So the pink is picked raspberry, and we'll have this one sitting on this flower. There we go. Right, now we want some of these stars. I think I want the stars to be a bit darker. I was going to put them on together, but I think I'm going to do it individually, then I can just put them exactly where I want them, rather than trying to place 2 at once. I'm just going to go back to using my Memento. I'll have one coming off the page there. I do love it when things come off the page. I think there's something really satisfying about it. Even if it's just a little bit like that. I love it. Right, so I'm going to use the other one to fill in the gaps where I want some more of them. Because this is quite small, I've taken the stamp to the ink pad, which is what I tend to do with smaller ones. Right, I'll have a little bit there. Well, I do like these stars, they're very clever. Kudos to Tracy for doing these. There's something very satisfying about these stars. Oh, I like how this is looking. I feel like there should be one more here, so I'm just going to use whatever's left. We'll have another paler one there. Why not? Use up what ink we've got. So you can get second and third generation, as you've just seen. Right, move the stamps out of the way. So now we have a focal image, we have a background that's nice and bright and lots going on. but I feel like we need to bring some things out, and that's where the white pen and the black pen come in. Now the white pen that I've got is my Jelly Roll pen, and this black pen is a fine line pen. This particular one is Thornton's by the looks of it. I'm assuming that's not the same company that does the chocolates. It's just one that I randomly got from Amazon, so I don't know the brand at all. So I'm just going to start now adding in highlights. And this is just something that I personally think makes designs just pop, when you start to add in little extra bits that weren't previously there. It just pulls your design together. So we're just going to put some, we're not going to worry about doing all of them. I'm conscious that I didn't dry off the memento. It should be okay because we didn't put other colours on top. We didn't, what am I talking about? We didn't put it on top of plastic. It's not gone on top of acrylic, it's gone onto distress, which is already absorbed into the page. So that means that the memento will still be able to absorb into the page, so it's not going to find it quite so difficult to dry. Just going to put some flower centres into my flowers. And then I think my little beak just needs some highlighting. I'm looking at this and I'm actually thinking, I'm not sure that I like the effect I've ended up with here. It's okay, but it's not my favourite. But you know what, that's what journals are all about. It's about trying something and then going, you know what, that didn't work. Or, hey, that's brilliant, I really like it. I'm going to run this down a little bit, give it something to stand on. This eye looks like a chess piece, looks like a pawn in chess. I'm liking the way it's looking. I'm going to add some black pen around the edge. Again, if you've seen any of my videos, you will know that I always finish pages off by adding some form of a line, and that's just to add a frame. I just think if you add the frame in, you focus the eye in on it. Again, it's personal preference. It's something that I learned a long time ago in my crafty journey, and something that is always stuck, so I automatically do it. I did go through, when I first came across this, which was a few years after I'd started creating, I realised the value of putting a frame, and I went through my art journal that I'd been doing for a couple of years at that point and thought, that's why those pages don't look finished. And I started putting lines around, not necessarily always in black, although it's my preferred one, but in all sorts of different colours, sometimes white, sometimes in browns, blues, whatever colours seemed to go with the piece. And I just think it finished those pieces off brilliantly. So instead of my usual scribbles, I'm just doing little double lines, just do something a bit different. It's almost like a little bit of stitching, which I quite like. I still feel like it needs something else. I feel like I want a sentiment, and I think I'm going to go with one of my Tim Holtz sentiments. I'm really enjoying using these. I've been looking at these for ages and ages and ages, and I finally bought them probably about 3 months ago. And you can see there's not many gone. I just love them. You only get 6 sheets, which you think that's not a lot for however much they cost, I can't even remember, but you get so many on each sheet. They are fantastic. You get 3 white with black writing and then 3 pages black with white writing, and they're brilliant. You have some amazing little things. They're all positive as well in here. The possible is often the untried. I really like that. Do what you love what you do, let it go. Replace fear of the unknown with curiosity. That's a good one, isn't it? Use your wings. Remember the now. Practice kindness. If you're lucky enough to be different, never change. We're going to go with that one. I like that. So they peel off really easily. They do have white edges, which if you're bothered you can always just go around them with a black ink pad, which I have done on a few. I'm not going to on this one, I don't think. I'm just finding a pair of scissors. I'm going to cut it there. If you are lucky enough, I'm just going to loosely stick it to be different. Never change. Now usually I put things on an angle, but I'm actually liking these straight. So I'm going to attempt to put them straight. These are stickers, so they do stick down. If you are sticking them onto something where you've got acrylics, you may find it a bit more challenging, and you may find you need to use a bit of glue, but they do stick generally on paper. So that says if you're lucky enough to be different, never change. Now overall, I think that page, when I look at this page in front of me, I'm really focusing in on this, and I'm not liking what I've done to it. I love the image, but I don't think the shadowing that I tried to do has worked terribly well. What I am going to do is just give it, I'll do it in the white so it's in keeping with the letters, and do a little bit of this scribbling. In fact, I think I'm going to get my white Posca pen. So I've got my white Posca pen here. If you haven't used a Posca pen, it's basically acrylic paint in pen format, and the nibs do come out. That's what the nibs look like. So if you start your nib getting a bit tatty at one end, you can flip it around, you've got another nib at the other one. So it's acrylic paint, and you need to prime them. So when you come, this nib is a kind of creamy colour, and it doesn't have any paint on it, and you need to get the paint out. So the first thing you do is what you just saw me do there now, which is to shake it, and I'm now priming it. I'm getting the paint to start flowing. Do it away from your project initially, and then the reason I'm going for this is it's thicker than the white jelly pen, and I'm just cleaning it off. It does tend to, with any white, what you tend to find is that it picks up the colour that's underneath, which is fine if you're happy with that, and I am in this case. I'm going to put some under that foot as well. Doesn't need quite as much under that one. A little bit at the back. So I'm going to let that dry, and I may well put another layer on just to make it whiter. I think my nib's nearly needing to be turned around. Okay, so that's, I'm liking that more, now the bird's grounded. But I'm not liking the shadow effect that I thought was going to work really, really well. I don't think it works as well as I was expecting. But never mind, that's what journaling's about. It's about learning. Learn as you go. Try things out. Yeah, I'm going to go with the white. I'm just going to highlight around here. Just bringing the white in. I don't want the corners to touch. This is just to say, look, here's the sentiment, have a read. What you're doing when you're creating is just telling the eyes what to look at, what's important. Your background, you want to stay at the back, but if you make it interesting, people then start to look into your work. I love the colours, I love the stamps and the sentiment. I just think that this has ended up as a little bit of a mess, and it's not my favourite. I love that stamp, but I think the double stamping didn't work. So I would suggest don't do the double stamping. I was hoping it would work better, but it didn't with that particular piece. Anyway, there's the finished piece. I love the colours of it. I think it's brilliant. And I love the fact that the distress inks just show when you stamp with them, or when you go through them through a stencil, you get a different colour to when you just apply them straight on with the brush. and that's one of the advantages of distress inks. I think they're a brilliant product. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that. Please consider subscribing so that you know when I put videos up. If you want to follow me on other social media, it's Angie B Crafts on Facebook or Angie Mary B on Instagram, and hopefully I will see you again. Bye for now.